Every day is different. Every video is different. But my passion will always be the same. This is Kai for Warshawn, aka Stormboy 13, and the storm has arrived. Wow! Hi guys, Stormboy 13. Got a brand new weather topic video to discuss today. Unfortunately, it's certainly not a happy one, but most weather topics aren't always that happy to discuss about. This one is about Hurricane Ida, the worst hurricane since Hurricane Harvey back 4 years ago. When it hit Texas. That hurricane didn't hit Texas at all. In fact, it pretty much nearly completely dodged it. Aside from the strong winds, it never made an impact in Texas. Instead, it made impacts initially in Louisiana, then moved northwards around Mississippi, and then crossed around the Midwest and northeastern USA, around New Jersey, Pennsylvania, but most importantly New York, have all been very badly hit. Now, I bet you got a question. So, it wasn't a hurricane by the time it hit New York, but how come it still produced some damaging weather with, for example, tornadoes, flash flooding, and of course, sadly, fatalities? Well, I'll explain that in this video. Now, to all of you weather enthusiasts who probably know about hurricanes, this is the peak time of the year for hurricane season across the Atlantic Ocean, from around, especially towards July to September. They're literally at a no-go zone for hurricanes, and it's not too surprising to get a Category 3 or Category 4 hurricane around this time of the year. I think what made it so shocking was mainly with the rainfall totals. Now, this is what I know so far. Saturday to Sunday, well actually a few days prior to Sunday, tropical storm brewed into a hurricane, was named Ida, and then Saturday it nearly made landfall with winds around, well, it was a Category 3 to Category 4 with winds over at least 150 miles per hour at its maximum strength. It moved into Louisiana around Sunday afternoon time. Basically, New Orleans and all of the surrounding areas around the Louisiana area had to be completely shut off for the safety. Everything had to be closed off. Now, initially, before I knew it was going to make landfall, I thought this could be even worse than Katrina, because of 2005, over 1,800 people died, billions of dollars in damage to like major buildings and events and stuff. It wasn't quite as bad as I thought it would be. I think mainly because there was flood barriers pretty much in place now, so protection have been around, nearly 100% a guarantee, and they have done a significantly improved job because there hasn't been as much damage as New Orleans was fearing about. There was some trees, big trees pretty much down in some areas, but that's pretty much expected. There was some damage to homes, but the main thing is the flooding, and unfortunately, although it has worked in some parts, other parts weren't so lucky. So on the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, coincidentally, Hurricane Ida, around the 16-year anniversary, impacted New Orleans that day. But we know, although still regrettable, 10 deaths have been reported around 3 states as I speak. It might be more at this time: Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Like I said, there has been some quite big flooding events, mainly in low-lying areas, still not quite as severe as it was initially feared. So we know Sunday 29th, it was a Category 3 or Category 2 hurricane. When it initially hit New Orleans, it quickly died out by the time it hit land. So by the next day, the Monday the 30th of August, it was downgraded to a tropical storm. Obviously, after slamming into the Louisiana coast, no question of doubt, New Orleans was hit by a massive power outage. And it's predicted that it probably won't be back on until around the middle of September. This is not good news, though, for businesses, including hospitals, where even then they're already having to deal with COVID surges, with people having to go into hospital because of the aforementioned virus. But once after it hit New Orleans, it was a tropical storm. It moved northeastwards, predicting to hit just around the New York area in a couple of days' time. But it mainly concentrated into the Tennessee borders around late Monday into the early hours of Tuesday. There was also fears that the Delaware River around in the Philadelphia area could be probably the worst affected in terms of its flooding for about a decade. The tropical storm persisted into Tuesday, again around the Philadelphia area, with predictions of around 4 to 6 inches of rainfall, mainly around the northwest of the actual city itself. Then by Wednesday, Pennsylvania and New Jersey also been given severe weather warnings, with even tornadoes been reported, as you would normally expect in the Midwest. So on Wednesday that day, last week, residents had obviously been avoided to avoid certain places, stay at homes as much as possible, as conditions were predicted to worsen around that time. So, like I said, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, like I said, as well as New Jersey and Pennsylvania, were all under tornado watches. And then also by Wednesday, I don't know how you pronounce it, the Louisana River had around less than 7 feet just around Wednesday afternoon. Then later that same day, which I think is in New Jersey, in Chester County, unfortunately just before around 8 in the evening, 8 inches of rain had fell, which unfortunately schools had to announce closures for the next few days ahead because of the flooding threats. Then on Thursday, the Louisana River overflowed around 15 feet on Thursday morning, which has surpassed the flood stage and has obviously entered into the major flooding category. And obviously it's near to the road, so there's no question of doubt that's been causing a lot of disruption there. And then also by Thursday, in Bucks County, they've also received around more than 10 inches of rain during an overnight tropical storm. And then finally, of course, we can't forget, New York, well actually firstly, New Jersey was also hit by some powerful tornadoes, which sadly dozens of homes have been completely destroyed, which scenes you would normally expect to see around Kansas and Oklahoma City, not around in the rural quiet areas of New Jersey. But that obviously spawned in tornadoes. How did that happen? Well, it could be down to some humid tropical air as well as cooler continental air colliding together, which is obviously the ingredients to spawn in some tornadoes. And because of how much energy there was, with the amounts of lift and because of the humidity and unstableness, that had the potential to bring in some twisters along, and unfortunately New Jersey bore the brunt of them. New York didn't quite bore the brunt for tornadoes, but it did bore the brunt for some devastating flooding. Also around into Wednesday night into early Thursday, we can't forget the remnants of Hurricane Ida completely rammed through New York City, and it also issued, can you believe it, its first ever flash flood emergency declared. As there's often an urban city, you wouldn't expect New York to be underwater. Consequences of the flash flooding in New York, well obviously there was people stranded in cars and in basements, and subways were completely submerged by flash flooding. Scenes you normally expect to see in terms of the amount of water flowing through in Niagara Falls, so this would have been a shock to sight for many. Especially in most notable scenes around in the 28th Street station around in Manhattan that early morning. The stairs were like waterfalls, something again like you would see from apocalyptic world. So yeah, basically, if that doesn't explain this, then I don't know what will. But yeah, it was pretty bad there. We also know that the flooding chaos in New York also comes as, for example, shocking footage. We know it's a tornado ripping through a New Jersey bridge. I'll have to look at that. I haven't looked at that yet. But more than 1 million homes, most arguably, have been left without power by the idea of carnage, mainly in Louisiana State. And there's also been reports that around 7 children, probably might be more now, were left hospitalized with carbon dioxide poisoning amid an Ida chaos, and more than, as we know, 60 million people throughout the Northeast were hit by flash flood watches. That's around almost 1 in 5, well, just over 1 in 5 people were affected, but technically speaking. And also, according to the National Weather Service, there was an estimate of around 3¼ inches that fell between 8 PM and 9 PM last night in just 1 hour alone in New York City, which is astonishing. That is just over 75 millimeters in an hour. And it also comes as a total of 8 fatalities at least have been tornado related, again around northeastern USA, mainly New Jersey, but also mainly a total of around roughly between 50 and 60 people, I'm not going to give the actual figure, all drowned very sadly from these catastrophic flash flooding events, mainly from Louisiana and New York alone. But also the final question is, how on earth did it have so much energy, especially with the rainfall totals, to mount through from Louisiana all the way up to New York, where New York is not often known for hurricanes, but normally the remnants of it? Well, what my theory is, but because it's the peak season, where late August to early September, it's still rainy season and it's still hurricane thunderstorm season in southern parts of the USA, mainly associated with tropical air. Now, also what my theory is, in around the early stages of fall, in America they call it, is the air noticeably gets cooler, as especially with longer nights, which will usually brings in some cooler temperatures from time to time. Because often those winds circulate in different directions because of the remnants of Hurricane Ida and the tropical storm, all of that collided together, and because of the track, it moved up, mainly around north to south. And I think because New Jersey is not in the tropical area, if that makes some sense, is with the cool air mixing with humid air, colliding together with so much, like I said before, so much unstableness and so much humidity. It's just been able to bring in so much rain, as well with the wind circulating at once, bringing the potential to produce some damaging tornadoes. That was the case in New Jersey, and in New York, a little bit unsure why, but I think it could be down to New York is fairly close to the river, and it could be down to the fact that New York probably doesn't have the best drainage or sewer system, so with so much rain falling in a short space of time, is unable to cope with an unprecedented amount of water. That just then collided through early Thursday, and normally tropical storms will last several hours. They don't just last for a 30 minutes or an hour long thunderstorm. It lasted for at least 6-7 hours, technically speaking, which was why New York has had a complete deluge of such extreme severity with the remnants of Hurricane Ida itself. That's just my theory. It might not always be correct, but that's what I think it may be. But also, if you are living in America, especially around New Orleans or in northeast USA, New York, New Jersey, etc., etc., if you are watching this, my thoughts do go out to you and all of your families who are affected by this absolutely devastating tragedy. As Joe Biden's obviously said in the conference recently, climate change has already hit us, it's here to stay, and is already going to get extreme, but we can always take action. It's not too late to stop it. Anyways, that is it for this video. Fairly long one. A lot of discussing, a lot of mentioning, but that's it for this video. There'll be another one coming soon into next week. Weather forecast coming up shortly, and it will be a hot week in the UK. Certainly no hurricane, but it could get interesting by the end of the week. More detail on that in the next video. And other than that, guys, stay safe, like, comment, subscribe, and the storm is now out.